Hey, folks, it's Lindsey Huddleston back in the building. Another SPS Edge podcast with my guy, Terry McCord Jr., the hostess with the mostest, making it happen, the young Jedi. Terry, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back on. Again, with the busy schedule, we get to see MSU tomorrow, man. The bright lights are on against that team about an hour away. So I'm really
That's
excited
right.
for that in this next couple of weeks as the season winds down.
That's right. You're absolutely right. It was a big night last night, too. We'll talk more about that. And I just got off a call with Coach Izzo a second ago. I know I'm not in my basement, my fitness basement. I am representing my city, Detroit. I'm in Detroit, Michigan at Starters on Woodward Avenue in Detroit. Shout out to Ira, the manager, for making me feel very comfortable. My guy Don, who served me them lobster tails, man, and macaroni and cheese, and what else, man? I had a whole bunch of stuff here, man, But I'm good, man. Was in the city, and it was just one of them long days, and I'm grateful for that. So, Terry, we got a lot of stuff lined up to talk about today, and a lot of it has a lot to do with you. And I just appreciate you helping put this thing together. So let's talk about what we're going to go through today. First of all, man, we want to kind of stay on the NBA for a second. Some things are going on I think it's worth discussing. First of all, before we get to Mr. NBA, let's talk about the NBA logo. Kyrie Irving just recently brought up the discussion that's been going on for a while, and I know our guy Orlando is going to put up some images in a second about changing the NBA logo from the Jerry West logo we've known so long, that we've only known, to looking at adding an African-American. That image right there is a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, that was cool, Orlando. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And if you can go through the other ones that they have that they're suggesting, of course, we got Kobe, we got Black Mamba right there, and that was just a thought or whatnot. And then we probably got some other ones, maybe the Jumpman could be one we can look at and we can talk through, as well as the LeBron James figure that's out there, But the one with Kobe is the one that people are probably saying, I think, for emotional reasons they should look at. But I look at it like this, and I want to get your perspective. Yeah, there's the Jumpman. That's probably the most recognizable basketball logo there is.
Mm-hmm.
MJ gonna want some bread for that. Though he ain't gonna be doing it for the culture. He gonna want that bread, you know what I'm saying? And rightfully so. And then another one would be LBJ right there, coming with it. And I think we probably can debate over and over about who should be on it for whatever reason. But I just want to get your feedback, Terry. What do you think about the discussion in itself about, who's going to be on the logo? Should the logo change? What do you think?
I personally, going through it, I understand why they want to. I personally didn't really have a problem with Jerry West, but at the same time, it's like when we have somebody that was so important to the game of basketball like Kobe, I would definitely see why there are discussions about changing the logo because, one, it's not like Jerry West was the best basketball player ever to play the game. He's 1-8 in the finals. He's played in an era that's been, some people call it ancient era of basketball. So, I can see why people want to bring a different kind of flavor, I like to say, to the game, and having a guy like Kobe who's been, so iconic and has been recognized all around the world, man. In China, they're over there talking about Kobe. I went over there a couple years ago, and they're talking about Kobe this, Kobe that, Kobe selling Kobe. He's got models wearing Kobe's. Kobe's a huge deal, and I think he'd probably get the nod if they do change it just because of the past year and his impact on the WNBA, the NBA itself. So I definitely can see that. I'm excited. I think that the Kobe logo will look really nice, and I think it's kind of to pay a tribute to the African Americans that have impacted this game so much. You can't tell me how not African Americans have not impacted this game. So I think it's going to be interesting.
You're right about that. It's a black man's league, no doubt. I want to shout out our sponsors as well. Got Orlando right on time. Shout out to Ratio Williams Foundation. Shout out Dick's Sporting Good. Shout out Gilead Sciences. And I also like, Terry, how you slid in there. Yeah, I just went over to China a couple of years ago, when I was over to China. That was dope, baby. You dropped it on them like that, but that's good. Orlando, we want to get you in and get your opinion because I definitely want to share my thought. And the reason why I'm glad I'm at a place like Starters that represents African-American culture, because I don't have to have this conversation and feel uncomfortable. But I will say this, in Orlando, I want to get your opinion too. I think that to some regard, I'm a victim of white supremacy in the sense that, to Terry's point, and even though he didn't go into detail, I'm okay with Jerry West. Now, one could argue, why would you want Jerry West? And like Terry did so eloquently, he ran down the stats, 1-8 in the finals. And I think what I love about Jerry West is he like, why me? It shouldn't even be me. Jerry West has always kind of been like, no, I'm good. And even to this day, him having that impact on the game so long ago, he's still involved. I want to say he might be special counsel to the LA Clippers right now. And I got a, Jerry West story that I heard that I'll tell you guys another day, whatever. Now, Orlando, what's your thoughts? You got us by just, a couple seasons or two. You've probably seen the NBA in a more formative way than we have as we come in representing different generations. But I'd love to get your thought on how you feel about the logo.
Well, actually, I mean, as far as the logo is concerned, for me, the Jerry West logo, it was about as nondescript as you can get. It wasn't detailed. It was just a silhouette. I think they did the best, that they could to kind of make it inclusive. I really, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is my favorite one. I keep hitting the wrong one, but I think in honor of Kobe, I think you can roll that out, for time being. But I think I understand the conversation, but then we also need to understand that the NBA they're really pushing it to be an international game.
Right.
So, I understand its roots, and I understand that the African Americans has built that league, but to expand it to where they want it, I think maybe I would suggest a rotating logo.
I like that.
Honoring different players for the year. I mean, hey, how about this suggestion? MVP of the league, but
gets to be the logo.
Following year, you own the logo.
Wow.
Get an enticement. Now you really giving back. I'm MVP of the league. Now you giving me a little spice to fight towards that.
And then your bragging rights like, man, you had to wear my logo three seasons straight.
That's it.
Like that. I like that. No, you make an excellent point, but it's interesting about how things go with this logo and how a predominantly black league still has white representation. This may be a stretch, but I liken it to you never get a Sports Center top 10 dunk. It's always a hockey play. Now, I used to justify that, Orlando and Terry, by saying, well, maybe because basketball is so dominant, that meant there'll always be a top 10 play that's a basketball play. But I'll be damned. Them hockey trick plays at the end, man, they end up being number one after you see Ja Morant jump over somebody or, some piece Kobe do something. But I just think that I'm a victim of my own, victimization of white supremacy in the sense that I accept those things with no challenge. And I don't want to look at Kyrie, who's someone whose social consciousness I can appreciate because at least he speaks on things. But I don't want to look at him and just be like, oh, Kyrie tripping, because I'm so caught up in the line with thinking that white is right and white is okay, and I just kind of struggle with that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool that Coach Watkins really brought that up. I like how you brought up that it was just something that they just did just to have a logo. Like it wasn't. It right. Seemed like it wasn't.
I don't think it was premeditated.
You know what I mean? Like it just like just like to put a figure on something, be like, this is the NBA. So when I see this, I know this is the NBA. But I think it'll mean more if we have more of like a message to it, or like we actually put some thought into it and not just like threw up one of the best players on there, the most favorable player, the most liked. I think it'd be cool, when nowadays we always have, and we try to put something with meaning, you know what I mean? And throughout this whole year, we've been trying to place a meaning on something. And I think it would be kind of cool to have the NBA logo be like some kind of form of meaningful to someone who has impacted the game. Just have some kind of message with it. I think it'd be kind of nice.
Right. No, I think. Go ahead, Lando, please.
No, I think Terry's right. I mean, just a rolling logo. I mean, I would be fine with just NBA. Period.
Mm-hmm. No logo. No.
I mean, that would be your logo. You can do many iterations of the lettering of NBA. Add a every year. As far as marketing is concerned, put a tagline. NBA is great. NBA. They've gone through that.
Right.
And it's not like they haven't tried different versions or different throughout the years. I mean, they've tried to spice it up a little bit, but the one that seems to always come back is the Jerry West one.
Right.
And then for most folks, we're rather educated in the game. If you ask most folks out in America and beyond, who was that silhouette of, they couldn't tell you.
They couldn't. I mean, but I think the big challenge to your point, Orlando, about it would have to be, if they change it, it would have to be roving, because who would you agree upon? There would be so many excellent arguments for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Come on now.
Right.
For Bryant, for MJ, you know, and of course LeBron James. There'd be so many different factions that if you had to do it like on a rotating basis, or say, you know, for the next 12 to 24 months we do it. I just think the NBA's issue would be, how do they capitalize on it and make the most out of it? Because what you don't want to do is have an outdated logo and those type of things. Kind of like how they do with some of the jersey purchases, that if your player gets traded within a year or two, you can still trade and get a new jersey. But I think it's interesting. I think it really speaks to where we are. You may have a lot of people who just may say, I don't care one way or the other, like Orlando said, they don't do it. But I just want to give credibility to Kyrie. Can you hit those logos for us one more time, just so we can just check them out, Orlando, just to be seeing? People wouldn't know who that is. Nobody would know what that is. You know, everybody would know that. Obviously, that's Kobe. Let's see. Okay, that's recognizable.
That's extremely recognizable.
Yeah, that's branded. But I was telling Terry, MJ would bankrupt the league. Like, I'm gonna need $3 billion for that. And even with LeBron, that kind of unless you know it, that kind of got an old school flair to it. That's like Jerry Weston, about to dunk it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, I think that was a good work. I think the NBA, if they do make that decision, they'll make it into a complete marketing circus. They'll have fans. I personally would have the fans design something, and I'd make it a year-long frenzy of fans voting on their favorite logo from each district. I would, you would have a logo playoff. Yeah,
I like that. Or the logo changes as you go. Well, that's good stuff, man. We can talk about this all day, but I still want to stay on the topic of influence. And if we had to break a tie between all those, there's probably one person who can help break the tie, and that's going to be LeBron James, only because of his relevance right now. With all due respect to the late, great Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who we all know was very socially conscious at a time when, it was just as tough as it is now, and Michael Jordan, who seems to be trying to, bring up the rear. But, of course, it's Reese Zoltan, who's known as a soccer phenom, and we kind of forget sometimes that soccer is just as popular, if not more popular, football, if you will, the world throughout. Have made a comment saying pretty much athletes need to stick to sports. What did it say, Terry? Sports unite us and politics divide us. Well, of course, that was a shot at the King, who Orlando pointed out offline that he can kind of talk about a little bit more in a second about that might just be a marketing play. But I took issue with that, and then I had to think about it, and let me know what you guys think. I've read somewhere that African Americans, we have, a collective consciousness that when I make it, I got to look out for everybody. And whether you do it like that or not, that kind of is how it happens. And if you don't do it like that, that pressure's put on you. You're not keeping it real. You can't come back to the hood if you necessarily want to. But I think other races don't carry that. They don't go to African American or other people other than African Americans and say, well, who's your leader or what do you think about this? They don't go to Tom Brady and say, what do you think about what happened at the U.S. Capitol? They don't do those type of things. But we've kind of always been, brought into that. So here it is, LeBron carrying the mantle, representing, if you will. He got to go back and forth. And I think because there's so much, as Beyonce said, when you got $1 billion on the elevator, you're going to have something. There's so much money wrapped up between these two stars that they saying stuff, but they almost got to be like, we got to be careful because we can't mess up the church money on this. I go to you, Terry, and Landon. I want to get your thought on that too. What you guys think?
Yeah, so one of the things that I thought was really interesting about the statement, one, he mentioned that, do what you're good at. I think one can argue that a lot of these politicians aren't good at their job. So that was the first thing that stuck out to me. I was like, do what you're good at. I'm like, first off, it's a huge compliment to LeBron, but at the same time, a lot of people can argue that a lot of our lawmakers and a lot of those that vote on these laws that are made aren't good at their jobs. I thought that was kind of funny. But then another thing is this is another example of another athlete that has a fixed mindset. You're limiting yourself. You're putting yourself in one category and you're not allowing yourself to be well-rounded. LeBron is probably one of the most well-rounded athletes that we've seen. And I know I could say I've seen, but I would argue that everyone's seen. And so when you have someone that you have constantly people speaking out on what you're saying, if they're saying something positive, he's impacting them. If they're saying something negative, he's still impacting them because they're drawing attention. I think that's what LeBron wants to do. He wants to draw their attention And even those people that are sharing and saying, right, LeBron needs to be quiet or he needs to stay and do what he's doing, at the same time, that's still LeBron having an impact and still influence them and having an influence on them and making them think. I think that's what LeBron wants to do, like voter suppression. He wants us to think about that. And then so those who agree with that unite together and make this thing, and try to stop that from happening. And so LeBron's always going to have an impact. He realizes that. I think a lot of times some athletes don't realize that, but LeBron will be the first one to tell you how powerful his voice is. He knew that when he was 18. How he knew how his what his actions would do, what his actions would do positively. And he also knew that if he stepped out of line, how many people would be on him. And I mean, step out of line, like if he's messing around, and you can look at his track record. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's always done it the right way. But that goes to show that when you say some things that may be right, and you may be looking out for your people, you always gonna have some kind of opposition, and they don't want to hear that. Like that's the last. They don't want to hear it.
No doubt. What do you think, Orlando?
Well, I know we talked earlier, and my thing is, my first statement was it's a marketing ploy, and I'll just share what the very first statement that he made about LeBron when LeBron was coming. Right. Now LA has a God and a king. So I'm trying to welcome King James. So I mean, one, you got an ego that's out of this world, and then first off, you tweeting, telling LeBron that you should stay out the politics, but you're going against your own advice because you're becoming political just by making the statements that you're making.
Right.
Stay in your lane and let LeBron do what he does. LeBron's doing a wonderful job, and we could throw all types of theories out there that maybe it's cultural. He's not American. He hasn't faced the issues that we have faced as the African Americans. He doesn't understand the culture. Maybe back in Terry, where is he from? Somewhere in Europe. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
But for me, I think it's about, hey, I'm in LA. I'm sort of the LeBron of soccer, but the real LeBron, the king, is getting all this press and everything else. Maybe it's about time I got my face in the news because I'm supposed to be that deal.
He's from Sweden, by the way.
From Sweden, okay. And my thing is the best way for him to get in the press is what? Go toe to toe with LeBron. And he's getting every dollar worth. Even if your name is bad news in people's mouths.
And no such thing as bad press. Right. I mean, I think to your point, Orlando, and yours too, Terry, that tweet that he put out there was to ingratiate himself and almost say, hey, let me equate myself, if not give myself the nod more to LeBron. I think he took the world by storm recently with his way of being very mysterious. I've seen him play, and a fan would run on the field and he would just keep walking and not miss a beat. So he has this mysterious way to him, man. But also too, man, call it what you want. He's white. And on his face, when you look at him, I think there's a general association. So he's able to align himself. How many Trump supporters, and we shouldn't be saying Trump supporters after man and lost, but how many conservative, staunch Republican votes will LeBron get as far as support compared to someone like Zoltan, who has that universal appeal as it relates to that? So here he is going back and forth. But I think the other thing that people got to be careful of is a lot of money wrapped up in this. You know what I'm saying? What are they saying, Godfather? There's a lot of money in that white powder. It's a lot of money wrapped up in this. So I think LeBron definitely wants to say his piece, or as you say, Terry, spar with him. But also, too, there's that financial aspect. And it's just kind of like, it just kind of sheds light on the fact that, our experience in America is unique to us, man. As African Americans, look at this. My man coming from Sweden, talking about, downplaying our struggle, and then the ignorance on his part to not even be smart enough to say he's pulling a Drew Brees, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Are you that? And I think it also should serve as a form of education that these people are so disconnected from the African American experience that they could just pop off them off all day. Terry, before we went online, you talked about Creighton's coach, Greg McDermott, making a racially insensitive comment. You just say stuff all the time because it's either you're so disconnected from what's going on or you have no fear of any kind of retribution, because at the end of the day, is the state of Oklahoma go just come down on this guy? How long has he been a coach at Creighton? You know, his son, you know, got all these accolades or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you hear that all the time. But that's what we're dealing with out here. I don't want to go too long on that, but I like the fact that we can use this platform to talk about these issues. And as people come back and listen, I hope they can share their thoughts and experience. I want to shout out again our sponsors, Gilead Sciences, Dick's Sporting Good, as well as the Horatio Williams Foundation. Shout out our guy Horatio. Terry, you're the only person on this call that hasn't met Horatio yet. We're going to make sure we make that happen so you can meet the man himself. And also shout out to the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. Still got to give it up to Don Houston and Clarence Babord. So with that, man, let's talk college basketball. We're going to have our guy John the Insider join us a little later in the show, along with Patrick, you know, once they land the helicopter on the roof, as they always do. But talking about Michigan State, you know, I happened to be able to watch the game last night and had a question that, you know, probably had a little viral, you know, potential, if you will, because it was talking about Aaron Henry and having Coach Izzo reminisce on, you know, a few seasons ago when him and Aaron made international news with, you know, the finger in the face and the coaching note moment that really kind of divided, you know, America. It was almost like Dems and Republican, Bloods and Crips. Like, was you good with that or were you not? But also to have Coach Izzo reflect back, you know, and he was somewhat emotional in talking about it, about how that happened, and look at Aaron now, you know, as a result. And he kind of doubled down and said, man, I'll tell you, Lindsey, what, I would do it again right now. And I got to shout out the Big Ten Network, man. That aired during the Big Show. So it wasn't just our normal press conference. It got really a lot of attention. So for the question that I asked, to get that kind of response and to be able to have that kind of relationship. And I later on went on to ask Aaron, I said, hey, man, you know, I defined the word perseverance and what it meant. And I also said, hey, they call you a coach, you know, Mr. March. I said, why don't we call you Mr. P for perseverance? He laughed and said, no, he want to be Mr. Henry or Mr. Winner, but he was feeling it. But I thought it was good. So what's your take on last night's game, Michigan State's win over Indiana?
I thought this game was not only important because of it was a bounce-back win off a tough loss to a Maryland team after having a great week. This also has some great implications to their March Madness run. I was watching ESPN, listening and seeing where they're filling MSU. They got them as the last four in. I got them, even if they don't beat Michigan, these next two games, I predict that they will. In one of them, I won't spoil which one, but I do think that MSU is safe right now. I think that even if they were to lose to Michigan and they win that first game in the Big Ten,
do they have to win one of the games? Do they have to split it at least?
I think if they lose both, they must win that Big Ten, the first Big Ten tournament game, which right now they're 9th right now, so they would play Rutgers. And I really
no
like
joke
that.
Though.
Rutgers I like that matchup for them to win and have a chance to win. And so I think they'd have to win at least one. But my thing is for MSU, don't even think about that. Focus on what's ahead of you. Don't get too caught up in the last four in and all that talk. But, you know, by numbers, I do think that if they beat Michigan, they're in. But I do think that if they lose both and win at least one or two games in that tournament, which I think they can, we've seen the Big Ten this year, a lot of teams with some really big highs and some low lows.
It's the best league in the country right now.
Right. And so I think MSU right now, because of it being the best league, I think if they win that game in the tournament, despite losing maybe the Michigan twice, I think they still get the nod and get in because they beat a team that's right on the bubble line with them in Indiana. And the other teams around them, I think they showed like Duke, and their Duke has like a 20% chance to make the tournament. Mm-hmm. And all those teams around them have their inconsistencies. They're not playing. The teams around them aren't playing as good as State right now. And I think that's a good sign because MSU is going to keep winning, get some key wins, and those teams hopefully fall off.
Yeah, man, I think that their ticket has been punched. I mean, let's face it, man, it's big business and it's good business for Michigan State to be in the tournament. It'll be nothing but good news. And I think had they continued to be on that losing streak, and think about what they did for college basketball, man. Their last games have been much-watched games. I tell you what, Tom Izzo probably got somebody fired. I think he got Archie Miller fired last night. Archie Miller was pissed in the press conference. And it's almost kind of like, I have a personal opinion. I think I asked John, the basketball insider, when he was with us a while ago, if he thought the Miller brothers were overrated, which I think they are. Because Archie Miller was in there. He was nasty to their media. I mean, dude, Tom Izzo, may, challenge us in a certain way, but he's respectful. There's a respectful relationship. Well, Archie Miller was short with him. one-word answers and just nasty. And maybe it could be that he said, I think I'm going to be going. I had the pleasure during football season of meeting Indiana's athletic director. Seemed to be a really pleasant guy. And, of course, that was just a brief encounter. But he probably is fearing that meeting you got to have. Indiana don't play, man. They don't play. They be like, dog, you got to go. Like, this ain't working. So I really think that Archie Miller may be out as the coach of Indiana. And there also was a back and forth with what's my man named Jackson, their forward. He was having an issue. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he was having an issue when they were up. So I think the fan base and other influencers can look at that and say, no, that's not a good look. What's going on there? You up right now. You got your player arguing with you, whatnot. Then you come in and give these kind of, answers in the press conference. So we'll see. But I think for Michigan State, they're going to be looking good. It's been a great story for college basketball. Better watch them kind of, make their moves in these last couple games. And this thing with Michigan, the question I posed Tom probably about 2 hours ago, I said, look, Tom, I don't want to make it about an old wives' tale. I don't want to make it about, superstition. I said, but, do you kind of cringe when the team you have to play gets beat by like 20 and then you got to play them because that means they're going to be more locked in? Whatever the politician, he responded like, man, we got beat by Maryland. I want to say, but you played Indiana and won against them, though. So basically there are two answers out there when you ask some of these questions in these press conferences. One answer is going to be the answer that he can say publicly, and one is the one he feels privately. Privately, it may be a totally different thing, but publicly, he has to better say if it's do it. And yeah, any given day, Michigan State can be successful against any team in the country. We know that. But if Michigan was fat and happy playing against Illinois, and had they won, that would have been to Michigan State's benefit. Now, put it this way, to the selection committee, if you listen to the SPS podcast with Lindsey Huddleston and Terry McCord Jr., as well as Orlando and John and Patrick, whatnot, I'm saying this: if Michigan State goes in Ann Arbor and beats the University of Michigan tomorrow, they're in the tournament, because the University of Michigan is going to be at their very, very best Thursday at 7 p.m. in Chrysler Arena. If Michigan State goes there and beat them, so please, what did you say?
Oh, yeah, it's senior night, too. I mean, there's a lot of emotions for Michigan tomorrow. Isaiah Livers, his last game as a Michigan Wolverine. It's going to be some high emotions for MSU. If they get that one, man, but that's going to prove that they deserve to definitely be in. I agree with you.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. Well, with the time we have, man, it was great watching that Indiana game. It was great. Let's talk about Aaron Henry for a second, man. It's been really interesting. And I've said that the person that Aaron Henry has to be thankful for, along with Tom Izzo, in my opinion, is Josh Langford. Because what I feel is that what Josh Langford has done and him getting himself back to his, playing style and playing ability, considered the 2 years off, Josh Langford has been Aaron's Batman. He's been a leader. He's been somebody that has presence that can take the pressure off of Aaron. Because for so long during the early part and middle part of the season, there was too much pressure I felt on Aaron to perform like Batman when Aaron really at that point was a Robin. And there's no knock on that. Shit, Robin the man too. You know what I'm saying? Robin's a superhero. But I think that when Josh got more into himself and worked his way back, he was able to have more of a commanding presence, which allowed Aaron to come in and kind of feed off of that. But now you got to see that guy Aaron Henry, man. You got to see him. What do you think?
I think, I saw like his stats throughout Big Ten play. I mean, when he scores over 20, it's almost a guaranteed win. I mean, I think the only exception is Iowa. And, when they played at Iowa, they probably should have had that one. That was in their back pocket as well. Slipped away a little bit. But, I mean, we're talking about a guy. I was watching the Ohio State game, man, and he really just took control. Like, you could say that. I could honestly say it. He didn't say it officially, but I honestly feel like he was saying, this is my team. This is our moment. And when you have players like that take over, it's just hard to beat because everyone buys in. Everyone's locked in on that moment because he's locked in. I mean, these are the moments as you creep down the postseason play. Your locker room guys, you start to see those players come out. So you start seeing guys like Aaron Henry. You see guys like Mike Smith, Isaiah Livers. You see guys like Dwayne Washington, and I would say Kyle Young, TJ Walker, those kind of guys come out and start playing their best because they've been preaching it all year. Like, this is our moment. This is what we're locking in for. And now they're going to go out there and prove why they've been saying that this is our moment. You know, it's that time where, like, this is I love to say this, but big-time players make big-time plays in big-time moments. You know what I mean? So, like, that's where Aaron Henry said, this is my moment. We can't lose. You know what I'm saying? Like, MSU arguably has been playing March Madness, I say, these last 2 weeks because they had to get these must-win games.
A win or go home, or win or don't go to the tourney. You know,
right.
Type deal. Yeah.
I love seeing that from him, man. He just really had that tenacity, that will to win. I love seeing that two-way side of him. I think he was slacking a little bit on defense. He had that will on defense, which I think really catered to his offense because I think getting those stops does something morally, you know, in your head. You're like, okay, let's go. I stopped him. Let's go get a bucket. You know what I mean? It's just something about stopping somebody on defense that fuels your offense. It's unbelievable.
No, you're absolutely right. And that leads me to the next part I want to talk about, what Coach Izzo has been saying for years and years, but it's so ringing true right now. A player-coach team is better than a coach-coach team. And it's pretty self-evident with the fact that he's saying, listen, I've empowered my players to lead. A great example was even with Foster Loyer now being out after season-ending surgery, those last 2 games, he was right there with the exception of Indiana. He was on the bench. He had his play cards. He had everything he had to contribute. You know, the whole fallout. And Tom has been saying that I think he's still struggling with Rocket Watts and AJ Hoger in the sense that these guys aren't buying in yet. And I'm making an assumption that it's Rocket, you know, but I don't know for sure. But I'm feeling good at that. And he keeps saying, hey, I got some guys who haven't bought in yet. And I think the issue is when AJ made a freshman mistake, you know, in the game, Coach Izzo got on him like he does. AJ wasn't really feeling. He was arguing back. And then Josh Langford stepped in. And Josh stepped in. He said, no. He did like that. Literally, he like crossed his arms and threw his arms. And it was so demonstrative. And it was so unlike Josh. So it was like, whoa. But AJ responded to it. And I later talked to AJ after the game. I said, man, you know, how'd you feel about Josh saying that? He said, listen, man, I felt good taking it from him. But I feel like he's like my peer. And I think that leads us to this whole discussion about, do you try to coach up the entire team, or do you find leaders on your team, Terry, and help develop them? And those are the ones that you go. I mean, that's the kind of guy you were on your team when I, you know, watched you with Eastern High School. Shout out to Coach Dave Jones and Coach Justin Christian. You know, when I watched you, and let's talk about that. And before I get your thoughts, I really want to again shout out starters in Detroit. I'm here on Woodward Avenue. Shout out to Irene, the manager's been helping us out, my guy Don, whatnot, and also our sponsors, Gilead Sciences, Dick's Sporting Goods, as well as the Rachel Williams Foundation. But what do you think about that concept as far as a player-coach team versus a coach-coach team?
Well, having a player-coach team, I think that's what makes the biggest difference when you have great postseason teams and you know, that do well in the postseason. But I think, you know, one thing about me last year, I just knew exactly what Coach wanted. You know what I'm saying? I've been there, you know, I would say under his wing for 3 years, and I really understood what he was looking for. And a lot of that is just spending time with Coach, you know, whether it's in the hallways, chatting up with him, you know, just hearing his mind, you know, taking bits and pieces of his mind and then putting it out to the players. I mean, I would say that a lot of times in the game, it'd be like little small things. I see that we're getting a little out of control on offense. I'm like, hey, let's run some. Let's run a set. Let's calm down. You know, it's just some things that just takes experience. You know what I mean? But, I mean, having a player-coach team makes all the difference. I mean, when you have a coach that always has to get on you and always has an expert team, it can be good, but there's nothing like a peer holding you accountable because it's just mental. You know what I mean? You have a guy like when my friend sees me out, I'm not doing so well. As we say, I'm down bad right now. Yeah, he comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, I've been seeing you've been slacking. Like, what's going on? I need you to get back up. Like how my friends would be. And I'm like kind of down. Like, hey, man, you got to work tomorrow. Like, let's go get this money. You know what I mean? Like, let's go work. We got goals to accomplish. We got things to do. Like, we can't be sitting up here slouching about something that happened 20 minutes ago. And so it's just something like that where I'm like, dang, like, he's right. You know what I mean? That's my boy. You know, he knows how I'm feeling right now. And I'm letting him down because, you know, it's one thing about letting somebody down. especially your peer, it just brings you to another level of like, man, I need to get back to doing what I need to be doing. And so I think with AJ, whenever Josh is like, no, man, like we can't have this right now. AJ's like, man, like, one, Josh has been here before. Josh has had his experience with Coach Izzo. And so when you see somebody that has had this experience, Josh has been there forever. You know what I mean? So he's like getting on him and it's like, no, you can't do this right now. AJ's like, he's right. Let me humble myself and take some advice from a guy that's been here longer than me so I can get accustomed, so it can be my turn next year when a young guy like Max Christie and Imani Bates maybe in the future that comes up, Jaden Atkins, when those guys come up and have their experience with Izzo. Because we all know every young player has that experience where they're like, feel like they're right. But we all know Izzo is right. You know what I mean? So I think it's something that shows how I think this is going to be what's going to carry MSU and have a really good postseason run. I don't know if they'll win. Even if they don't win many games, I think this will help them come together and have some really serious competitive games in March.
Yeah, very well put, Terry. So many great things that you said, and I think it's leading me to what I plan to do postseason when we're done. And we're going to bring John in just a moment, too. As a matter of fact, it's probably good if we can bring John in now because he can chime in on some of the things that we're having as we get ready to get into that. There he is right there, John. We're going to bring you in a second. We talk about a player-coach team versus a coach-coach team, and I'm projecting what my plan is at the end of this NCAA season around April to really get together potentially with a project that I'm working on in the city of Detroit and just really talk about, looking at developing players and developing leaders on teams so that they can be the ones that can go and speak on behalf of the coach. I think from a generational standpoint, we've been used to a form of leadership where you have the leader being the coach and the rest of the team. But these dynamics are so different now. Sometimes you got these subgroups, unfortunately, where some of these young people are going to be more receptive to their peer than they are to the coach. So what do? Do you keep banging your head against the wall trying to get through, or you say, what, let me empower the right people so I can send that message out and they can go get it done? And more importantly, why I think this is a question that goes beyond basketball, both Terry and John, is what about these individuals who are going to be working in these restaurants like the one I'm at right now, Starters in Detroit? We're going to be working these jobs where you have a leader. When Terry becomes general manager of a company or organization, he says, I need to get this done. And you need to be able to empower other people that can go out there and make it happen. And I think what happens is so many of us from a different generation, we have a problem with that because that's not the way we did it. But this is just the way it is. So, John, I know you're just chiming in, and we pay you all this big money, man, to help us with these Big Ten picks. But I'm just curious to know what you think about the idea of a player-coach team versus a coach-coach team, which Coach Izzo talks about all the time.
Well, I'm 72 years old, okay? And when I played sports and I played everything, I played in the Detroit Public School League. It was best when you had leadership among players. That was the way it was then. And I don't think the generation has anything to do with it. Because when you have a leader and you have a group of players that have expectations of being good, being great, and they set a standard of how about they go about their business, how they go to school, how they practice, how they work out, how they live. You're always going to be head and shoulders above the team that has no leadership and just has a coach telling them what to do all the time. Bobby Knight used to have a perfect saying. In a press conference, a guy said to him one day, a reporter said, well, Illinois had a 10-0 run. Why didn't you call timeout? He said, well, if I got to tell them how to get out of trouble every time they get in trouble, how are they ever going to figure it out on their own?
Right.
And so leadership, no matter whether you're in business, whether you're on a basketball team, whether you're a politician, whether you're a manager of a business, it doesn't matter. If you have a group that has a common goal, and this is the way we do things, you're going to be far ahead of a group that doesn't have that.
That's excellent. Right on time. So with that, let's keep you here with us, John. That's what we get you here for. That's what the helicopter lands on the roof for. Let's talk about these matchups, man. You know, I'm looking at my trusty schedule, what we were talking about. Hey, tomorrow night, man, I was just talking to Coach Izzo maybe 2 hours ago. At about early evening tomorrow, they're going to be heading down to Ann Arbor to go for it. What's your take on Michigan State versus U of M, Part 1?
Well, I think, Michigan State has a horrible problem guarding the rim. And they don't have a matchup for Hunter Dickinson. Okay, and that's going to be hard for them. And sometimes
who does though, John? Who does? My goodness.
Well, yesterday they did. Kofi Coburn got him in foul trouble, and you saw a man playing against a freshman yesterday. I mean that 6'11", 290 gave that young fella a lesson in what it's like to play against a man. Okay, now if I can't quite understand, Bingham must be in Coach Izzo's doghouse every day, because sometimes he lets them go and play a little bit, and he looks like he's turning the corner, and then you go to Maryland, and I believe he played 4 minutes. So, how they defend Michigan. Yesterday you saw Illinois guard the basketball. They put pressure on the basketball. They put pressure when you were on offense and one pass away from the ball, and they went over screens instead of going under screens. They were on top of it, and you showed that Wagner and Livers, when you guard them, when you get up in their face and you're physical with them, they're not quite the same players. Okay, they can't dribble and stuff and beat you off the dribble a lot. If you stand there and you hold your ground and your hips are in front of them, okay? And if it all is going to depend on how Michigan State defends. And then, you guys were talking about Aaron Henry. Aaron Henry scored the last 11 points last night, correct? All right, they're running a set where they're sending everybody on the side, and they're giving him the ball at the top, and they come and give him a screen, and he ends up going one-on-one in the middle. Well, you saw Sunday that Maryland said, oh, no. We're going to triple team you there, and we're going to make these guys on the wings make jump shots. Okay? So they cut that off. Indiana last night, Archie Miller elected to sit there and guard him one-on-one, and they had nobody to guard him. So how does Michigan, who is going to defend Aaron Henry, and how are they going to handle this new set where Aaron Henry gets the ball and the middle's his, where you don't have help? Now you got to leave a wing, and you got to come there. When they have the ball on the side, they can send help. But when you have the ball in the middle, you got to stay with those guys. Now, is Michigan going to say, hey, I'm not going to let Aaron Henry go in here, and I'm going to make Gabe or Langford beat me with threes? Then Langford and Gabe got to make threes. That'll take them out of that real fast. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic. But I do think that Michigan State, if they want to guarantee going to the NCAA tournament, they got to get one of these two games this weekend.
So who do you have for tomorrow?
I got Michigan tomorrow.
Got Michigan tomorrow. Got it. Terry, what's up with you? What you got, Terry?
I agree. One of the things that I saw against Maryland that I really liked that, because one, Mark Turgeon's teams, they always pay attention to detail in the scouting report. I think I've noticed that for the last few years. Like, they knew MSU cannot get in the inside, so they were actually double teaming post entry passes. They weren't allowing anything in the middle, and they were just letting and then, like, guys with some short legs, they weren't really energized. They were pretty tired, I believe MSU was.
4 games in 7 days, Terry, compared to 1 game in 7 days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Maryland came off, like a rocket. I mean, they were out ready to play, and I think that made the biggest difference. But I think this game, I don't even look at really records in this one. I think Michigan will win this game just because I think Coach Juwan Howard will have some kind of a game plan similar to Maryland. I think Michigan does a great job paying attention to detail on defense, help side defense, talking on defense. You can actually hear them while you're watching the game. I got help. I got your help. Get up. like you can hear them. I think when you pay attention to those things, the small things, that's how you win ball games. I'm not saying Michigan's the only team, but you can constantly hear them talk through the TV. Even if you turn it on volume 15, you can hear somebody yelling, "I got your help, I got your help, I got back, I got back." Like different things that will win you ball games. I think having it be senior night for Isaiah Livers and other players on the team, I think that Michigan's going to get this one just because the emotions will be high. They're coming off a really bad loss, the game that they probably think they should have won. I think they're going to get this one. I do expect Michigan State to give them a fight, but I do think Michigan will get this one.
Sorry about that. As I try to unmute, excuse me. Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to go. House money will be on the home team being able to get that. In the interest of time, guys, let's just try to get through these other ones so we can make sure the Streets is Watching Podcast Network is able to get all of our information. Let's talk about another matchup, and that matchup is Indy versus Purdue, the in-state rivalry. And personally, and I asked you about this the other day, John, you know, what you thought about Archie Miller. I think Archie Miller is a dead man walking. I don't wish anyone lose their job, but he was so short, no pun intended, with the media in the press conference. I wasn't on the call, but I saw it. And like his irritation is more than just losing the game. I think he feels that he's pretty much at the end of his rope there. So I'll stay with you, Terry. What do you think about the matchup between Indiana and Purdue?
You know, for the record, I'm really tired of the disrespect Purdue has gotten this year. I feel like Purdue, to me, is one of my dark horses to make the Sweet 16, honestly. I think they play one. I mean, the one thing that we know about the Big Ten, everyone plays pretty good defense. And I think Purdue, they play so efficient. I mean, when I saw them play against Penn State, they were an underdog in that game, and they were beating them by 20 at one point. Like, just pounding them, just giving it to them. Like they kind of beat you slow and steady, kind of like how Wisconsin plays a little bit. Like, they won't be so flashy. They might throw some little inside passes and really feed the post in there with Williams. You know, kind of old school kind of feel. But I really like their freshman class. I think they might be kind of like the Etwan Moore, Robbie Hummel kind of class that they had a couple years ago. It's been a while since that's been there. But, you know, I really like their class, though. But I really think Purdue's going to hand it to Indiana. I think Archie Miller's done. I got Purdue.
Go ahead, John. What do you think?
I think that Purdue's going to win the game, and it all comes down to, is Indiana going to cough up $10 million? Because if they get rid of Archie Miller, they got to pay him $10 million, and they're having a little problem financially. So, but I like Purdue in this game, hands down.
So that 10 mil is going to keep them alive for a little while. What, for 2 more seasons?
I read an article about their athletic program, and they're down a lot, okay? They're hurting financially, and they're going to have to pay him $10 million or you let him coach one more year and then ship him down the street. But he's 14 games under 500 in the Big Ten. You can't allow that. Indiana's not putting up with that.
So the next 24 months will allow the contract to change significantly. That if he gets one more year under contract, then they won't be beholden to that $10 million.
That's correct. If they let him coach one more year, fulfills the pro. A lot of people are talking about Indiana, some money people getting together and trying to get the guy from Baylor. He's an Indiana guy, born and raised. His father still lives there. His brother's there. They want the guy from Baylor. But it's going to cost a lot of money. And
Texas don't mess around.
Pay this guy.
Because even the late T. Boone Pickett, I think, was a Baylor alum. He was a billionaire. I mean, Texas don't mess around. They're not going to let you off the hook. But we'll keep that conversation going. We keep an eye on that. Thanks for giving us that insight. We got about 10 minutes left, guys, and we got a few more teams we can touch on with the time that we have. We're going to go give you guys ahead. We got Illinois versus OSU. And then we'll get into Wisconsin and Iowa, and then that final U of MSU. So I'll go with you, John. Let's talk about Illinois versus OSU.
Keep the sharp objects away from Terry. Ohio State is kind of hit their peak, and they're kind of tumbling right now. That tumble continues Saturday. Illinois is tasting it. and they're going to take the Buckeyes and they're going to put a whooping on them. And watch Terry. Keep an eye on Terry. He's a nice young man, and I worry about him Saturday.
So Terry, he can only wear slip-ons. He can't have his shoestrings in.
No,
he can't wear a belt.
Only
Velcro.
strings away from me.
Oh man,
Terry, what's up, man? We got to put you on that watch, man. What's up, man? Tell
man,
us
all I know is that EJ Liddell, man, product from Illinois, 2-time Mr. Basketball player, gave them work the last time they played him. It's nothing like playing against your hometown team.
Right.
And I think he will give him the business. He will give them the blues. I got my boys bouncing back, man. I do think they have hit a – because, I mean, one thing, they're not big. And so they have a mismatch about just about any team that they'll play. Coburn's going to be a mismatch on the inside. Garza's going to be a mismatch. We saw Dickinson. So, I mean, they're small, but I do think, you know, that they are going to get back to shooting the ball well on the outside, freeing up Liddell in the middle. We're going to be back, man. Don't worry. Saturday is going to be it's going to be a good day for us.
Well, good. We will keep an eye on you, though. Stay with you, Wisconsin, Illinois, Terry. What do you think?
You know, did you mean Iowa for that one?
Iowa, Wisconsin, Iowa.
My apologies. Thank you.
Oh, it's good. I think Iowa has hit a little stride. I think they're starting to play how they played in the beginning of the year. I think, you know, they're shooting the ball to accompany Garza. Garza's getting a lot of attention, but they're freeing him up a little bit with everyone else's activity. And so I think that Iowa's going to get this one. Wisconsin's kind of been a little weird this year. I mean, that kind of shown some inconsistencies. That's not something that we're used to from Wisconsin. So, but I do think Iowa's going to get this one.
I do agree. Wisconsin was one of the favorites early on, but that's an example of those teams that start strong and that midway point, that latter part that weans them out. John, what's your take on that matchup?
Well, actually, Wisconsin was the media's pick at the Big Ten media to win it, but I like Iowa in this game. Wisconsin has a hard time. They go too long without scoring.
Yeah.
They don't have guys that can. When that shot clock goes down, you hear me talk about this all the time. What do they do? Who do they go to? I like Iowa in this game.
Great. We'll stay there for U of M versus Michigan State Part 2. This will be at the Breslin Center, and I'll be in the building for that one this Sunday. What's your take on that, John? And then we go to you, Terry.
Well, I'm gonna go with the Spartans. I think their backs are against the wall on Sunday. I think Draymond sends all of them steak and cheese Subway, and Mateen Cleaves comes in and beats his chest and slaps a couple of them around a little bit. And I like Michigan State to win that game. I think that they show their real mettle that day. I think they put it all on the line. I think they go out and they beat a team that they're not supposed to beat, but they do what a Michigan State puts on their jersey, laces up them shoes, Tom Izzo and March. Man, I'm for the Spartans strong in this game.
I like that. Terry, what you got? Michigan
I
versus
agree.
Michigan State.
It's hard to beat a team twice, especially in a rivalry game. I do think that, like you mentioned, John, about the Spartans having their back against the wall. There's nothing like that. I mean, with nothing to lose, in a rivalry game, that's always been key. You know, a team just going out there playing free. I do like MSU's chances at home, just because, like I mentioned, like it's hard to beat a team twice, and it's back to back. The emotions are so high in a rivalry game. I know one thing, man. I'm tired of picking against MSU when their backs are against the wall. I did it last Thursday, and I won't do it again. I learned my lesson as I sat there and watched my Buckeyes lose to MSU at home. So, I mean, while they were on the road at MSU's home. So I'm going to just go ahead and learn my lesson and pick MSU in this one.
Yeah.
That's okay, man. That's okay. No, it's going to be something to see, man. I think these last 2 weeks of basketball have been great. It's what college basketball does. And this is even without a tournament, you know, and Not up until a few days ago, John, I didn't know there was going to be an NIT, where they've shrunk it from 32 teams to 16, so there will be. At one point, I was posing the question, NIT or NCAA, but I think clearly Michigan State is an NCAA-bound tournament team. I think these wins they have been good for the program. I did ask Ken Henry the other night, how do you feel about, winning? He said, that's what we're supposed to do. I said, but it got to be a good feeling that you won a few and lost one compared to lose. And that's the high they're on, man. But to get them up, man, ready to go in. And, if they split one of these games with Michigan, which I think all the good money is on that they'll do, that's going to set them up for a great tournament run. And I don't think any other team in the NCAA right now has had these type of challenges that Michigan State has had to prepare for the tournament. So with that, guys, we got a few more moments left. Definitely want to hear some closing remarks from you guys. John, we always appreciate having you. Anything you want to share just for the good of the order?
Yeah, I always listen to you guys before I come on, and I'm always interested in the conversation. And over the time that we've been together and we've talked, I reflect on things. And I wanted to mention something tonight. There's three guys in my life that said something that resonated and stayed with me. And I'm going to put them in the order of age because I don't know which other order to put them in. But the first one is Dwight D. Eisenhower. In 1961, on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 1961, he's turning over the presidency to John F. Kennedy, and he gives a speech. And his speech is, people, we need to keep an eye on the military-industrial complex. They're getting out of hand. This was 1961. What do you look at today? Most of our spending goes to the military, and the industrial complex doesn't want to pay our taxes. They hire people to not pay taxes. The second one is one of the greatest things that I've ever heard in my life was Martin Luther King. Judge a person on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. That is just so powerful. The content of your character. I mean, can you say any more about a person? And last but not least, my man Marvin Gaye. What's going on? For only love can conquer hate. That's all I got to say.
I like that. I'll probably say for me, I'll bring some little new school in there. I got to go to my man, what Meek Mill said. A lot of people have probably said it, but Meek Mill said, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. And right. I think that's what, LeBron has kind of been. LeBron's he's not, ordinary guy. He knows he comes with a lot of, a big package, with everything, fame and all that. But he knows one thing, that the power of voice, the power that this little organ, your tongue, man, it can really influence a lot of people. And so I think everyone should take note of that, not letting anyone silence you, and standing for something. I mean, that's something that everyone can do. Everyone has a voice, so stand for something.
That's awesome, man. I can't say enough, and I won't, as they say, try to preach over that, man. You guys, John, what you shared, Terry, what you said in Orlando, your comments from earlier have been so appreciated. So with that, I want to thank you all. And again, I want to thank our sponsors, Dick's Sporting Goods, Gilead, Sciences, as well as Mr. Horatio Williams himself. And I also want to shout out the starters in Detroit for welcoming me and welcoming the SPS Edge when the man was just, trying to get back home but couldn't make it back to the crib. So with that, we want to thank you guys. Shout out to Streets is Talking Podcast Network. Don Houston, Clarence Board, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being here.